So it's a clear idea for dummies.
That's the first two words on our live recording.
I thought I wanted to get loud enough that everybody hears this.
Kia ora tātou, he mihi nui ki a koutou kua huhui mai te rā nei. Ki a koutou I ngā rangatira o te kaunihira nei, ngā pau o te rohi nei, Central Otago. Ki a koutou he mihi tino nui ki a koutou me tō koutou whānau, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to this inaugural meeting of the Central Otago District Council for the 2022-2025 triennium. Thank you for being here. Everybody in this room knows me, which is awesome. I can scratch that part from my speech as well. Today we're going to see the Mayor and Council elected to represent our community for the next 3 years make your declarations of office. While today's meeting is largely ceremonial and procedural, it is my role to chair the first part of this meeting, to then swear in the Mayor and then to hand over to him to run the rest of the meeting. The rest of the meeting is comprised of a range of legal and other documents that are required to set up a functioning council and that councils across New Zealand will be approving over the coming weeks. I trust you've all seen and read those. I have to note any apologies, and while we don't have any specifically, could you please just note that Sarah Brown will be late. Time soon. As Chief Executive of the Council, it is my great pleasure to now undertake the formal and traditional investiture of the Mayor of Central Otago. So Tim, I'll get you to come and stand over there. We don't have a band, but I think a little bit of ceremony is called there. Because it's so much in the day. If you can note that Councillor Brown is now. Hi kids, welcome. To worship. You have been elected as the Mayor of Central Otago, and it is now my privilege and pleasure to invest you with the insignia of your. At your investiture in 2019, I reflected on the meaning of the word mayor, and that it was the anglicised form of the Latin word major, or great. I said that you should consider yourself as the district's first citizen, elected by the people of Central Otago. This time, of course, I want to double down on that assertion, because this time you didn't even require an election. The office of Mayor is widely regarded as the highest honour that a district can bestow on one of its citizens, and the office carries with it the requirement to watch over, advocate and look after all people of Central Otago, and not just your own personal, political or sector. Since 1989, when the various boroughs and councils were amalgamated into Central Otago District Council, these chains have been worn by successive mayors that have gone before you. The chains are not intended to glorify you as an individual, but are a symbol of the office that you hold, that are to be worn in respect and in honour of the people whom you serve. The wearing of the chains plays an effective part in ensuring that the functions of office, both business and ceremonial, are conducted with dignity, with credit to the council and honour to the community. These enduring chains are even more poignant, I think, in this period of change in our world and for our sector. The chains with which I now invest you are therefore the outward and visible sign of the distinction, favour and authority which Central Otago citizens have conferred upon you as their mayor and leader. I now invite you, Your Worship, to make your declaration.
I, Timothy Cadogan, declare that I will faithfully and impartially, and according to the best of my skill and judgment, execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago the powers, authorities and duties invested in or imposed upon me as Mayor of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information Meetings Act 1987 or any other act. Thanks, Sanchia. Now, my role and my great pleasure to welcome you all here, firstly, again, you know, the CEO already has, and to invite the councillors up one by one to take their oath of office. And as I've just done, we're going to do this in alphabetical order. So, Councillor Tamer, first, please.
I, Tamer Ali, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, any other act.
Now, one of our fresh faces, Councillor Brown.
Roger, I've got laryngitis. My heart just quiet. I, Sarah Brown, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform the best interests of Central Otago, powers, authorities and duties vested in imposed upon me, a member of the Central Otago District Council, by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or too much.
I, Linda Courage, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform the best interests of Central Otago, powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me, a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, Local Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, any other.
Okay.
I, Ian Cooley, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act.
Andrew?
I declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform the best interests of Central Otago, the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002 and the Local Government Official Information Meetings Act 1987 or any other.
I, Sally Feineman, declare that I will faithfully and impartially, and according to the best of my skill and judgment, execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago, powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act.
Release.
I, Neil Gillespie, declare that I will faithfully and impartially, and according to the best of my skill and judgment, execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago, powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act.
I, Cheryl Lawrence, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform the best interests of Central Otago, powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, Local Government Official Informations and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act.
McKinley.
I, Nigel McKinley, declare that I will faithfully and impartially, and according to the best of my skill and judgment, execute and perform the best interests of Central Otago, powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other.
Person.
I, Martin McPherson, declare that I will faithfully and impartially, and according to the best of my skill and judgment, execute and perform in the best interests of Central Otago, the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act.
Interesting policy.
I, Tracy Patterson, declare that I will faithfully and impartially, and according to the best of my skill and judgment, execute and perform in the best interest of Central Otago, powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Central Otago District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or
Thank you, everybody. Yes, believe it or not, that is the exciting part, eh? But hopefully the rest won't take us too. Nice. So councillors, we now turn to page 18 on your agenda, the statutory advice and the code of conduct. And that is your paper, Madam CEO. Absolutely.
The statutory advice and code of conduct paper is a paper that I'm required to advise you on under the legislation. It is relevant to your office and the performance of your duties. And that's why it's here today. It's required to be approved at the inaugural meeting of council. I'm not going to labour all of the pieces of legislation that are listed in it. Many of you will have seen them before. I am going to make a couple of points on each one though, because the responsibility for adhering with these pieces of legislation lies with you. So on the first one, Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act, it sets out the parameters for which information and communications received and made in your official capacity are made public. It determines when public agendas and reports must be made available. And it's important to be cognizant that other than the exceptions prescribed in the law, all information obtained by you in your official capacity is discoverable and therefore publicly available. The Local Authorities Members Interest Act 1968 relates specifically to the making of contracts between local authorities and its members and the restrictions on the actions of members when they have a pecuniary interest in a matter. The Act also prohibits a member from participating in a discussion or voting on a matter in which a member has directly or indirectly any pecuniary interest other than an interest in common with the public. I think most of you are aware now that the obligation to declare an interest greater than the general public is an obligation that rests with you as individual members. The Crimes Act 1961, and then specifically sections 99, 105 and 105A, which deal specifically with issues of bribery and corruption. The Secret Commissions Act 1910, which relates to the receipt or giving of gifts as a means of inducement or showing favour. And it is important for you to understand the parameters of appropriateness in this space, because it's something you will come across over your time in councillor roles. Financial Markets Conduct Act 2013. This Act places similar obligations on you as members as it does on a company director whenever council offers financial products, particularly the time when we take on debt and other things. The Local Government Act 2002 relates to the requirements of a member having to vacate their office as a member in the event of a conviction of more than 2 years, or if they cease to be an elector or disqualified for registration as an elector. The Public Records Act 2005, which is designed to keep the public service accountable by ensuring records are full and accurate, well maintained and accessible. The Act also defines what constitutes a record. The Privacy Act 2020 determines how we are required to collect, store, use and share information. And the Protected Disclosures or the Protection of Whistleblowers Act 2022, which provides protection for employees when disclosing serious wrongdoings by their employer or fellow employees. There is also a copy of the Code of Conduct there. Actually, there's more than one copy, there's two. One is the changes that have been made to it since it was presented to this council the last triennium, and some learnings we took out of that training that we've added to the Code of Conduct. And the second document is a clean copy of it, so you can see how it reads, those changes made. The Code of Conduct is based on LGNZ advice with some of those additions that we identified. That is the Code of Conduct used by councils across New Zealand. Each councillor, each of you, is independently and directly responsible for understanding and complying with all of the legislation that I've just talked about, and with the Code of Conduct, and understanding the contents of that Code of Conduct.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions, clarifications? Wide, Tracy?
In the it's got a yellow change, and I'm sorry, but I'm just not sure how to find my page number in this blue.
Should be over on the side, just a wee number.
That side, no.
Bottom of the page.
I want to touch something. Sorry.
Don't panic. You won't be the first. Well, you will be the first. You won't be the last, I'm sure.
Still don't know where I am, but it is in complaint referred to the mayor. Sorry, it'll be page 38, actually, page 38. And there's the bit in yellow, it's the bit in yellow and the bit that was there from the previous time. Are they both required? So it's complaint referred to the mayor.
There might be some double language there. I think
Yeah,
it
that's
it repeats itself a
it
bit,
just-
but it doesn't duplicate.
There's there's two different, kind of, whether it's meant to be kind of, yeah, I just wasn't sure whether it was. That's all.
I think it's workable like that, but it is probably a bit clumsy.
Yeah.
Take that on board.
My understanding is LGNZ is still working on another one, so we're going to have another change potentially if we choose to go with it this term. So we might just tidy the language up in there. Spotted that. Anybody else? In that case, then we go back to page 18. There's recommendations A, B, and C that we receive the report and accept the level of significance, notes the advice given on the relevant legislation and adopts the code of conduct. And I thought I might ask Councillor Fineman to move that and Councillor Brown to second it, just to get your feet wet.
I'll move that. Looks like I'm seconding.
There you go. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. We move now to page 76, which is the adoption of the standing orders, and that's your paper, Dean Sancho.
This is very straightforward. The standing orders that are in front of you are the updated latest version of standing orders for local government, from Local Government New Zealand. In adopting these standing orders, we would be consistent with other councils across New Zealand.
Certainly shorter than the last one. Questions, comments?
There's three little bits that we need to decide within those standing orders. One is whether people are allowed to join via audiovisual link, the casting vote of the chair, and also whether we want to endorse option A, B, or C for speaking and moving motions.
So those three are consistent with what we used last term.
Yes.
But we need to note that in terms of the audio visual link, you can no longer vote by that.
No, you can. You just can't be counted as quorum.
Can't be counted as quorum. Thank you. I thought I had that. Yeah. So it's only a minor change from, and that's been through legislation, not through any choice of ours. So that was the way we operated last term. I think with a council like ours that is spread over 10,000 square kilometres, the audio visual link's awfully helpful, particularly if we have just a very brief meeting. A cast and vote for the chairperson. Been here 6 years, never had to use it. I hope I don't ever have to. I'd rather gather consensus. And we're pretty informal around here, so I don't see why we'd change that. But does anyone have any contrary views? Any other questions on the standing orders? In that case, would somebody like to move recommendations A and B found on page 76? Taylor. Seconded, Tracy. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you. That moves us to page 166, which is the appointment of the Deputy Mayor. And you'll see there that I am recommending the appointment of Neil Gillespie as the Deputy Mayor. Neil's been literally a tower of strength because he does tower over me over the last 6 years and will continue to do so, and as a regular voice on the telephone when sometimes some calming down is needed, sometimes some advice is needed. So is there any discussion on that? Somebody like to move it?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Stu. Seconded, Nigel. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Yes, well done. Right, page 167, council organisations and the policy on appointing directors. That's yours, Wayne.
Yep. Thanks.
Let's give it a moment.
So this report is to fulfil requirements for section 57 of the Local Government Act. And it lays out a policy for directors of controlled organisations or council organisations. We actually don't have any, but we're still.
You never know.
But we're still required by law to adopt this policy.
And for our law to do it, there's not really much point in discussion, but are there any questions?
Move it.
Thank you, Stu. Seconded, Martin, that's A, B and C. No further discussion. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. This takes us to the adoption of the interim delegations register. That's you again, Wayne, on page 174.
Okay, so this is the interim delegations register. We're calling it interim because there's still some work to be done on the delegations to the CEO section of the document, and we're not quite finished with that. And we thought that rushing it and making a poor job of it would not be a good idea. So we will bring a revised the updated real one to the next meeting. But in this particular meeting, we just want to set up the bits that are portfolios and also delegations to community boards. They're going to remain unchanged, and you'll see in the track changes that in the portfolios, the sustainable practices portfolio is gone and it's going to be absorbed into council. And then the only other change will be in the old economic development and community facilities portfolio, which is going to change. And I think I've got the wrong title in the report, but we'll fix up the right title and get it into the delegations. I think I've called it community something about that. Anyway, and that's going to be led by councillors Ali and Feynman.
What's the name of that tweet time? Conservation and experience.
Community vision and experience.
Yeah.
It's from them.
It's right, not important, but I think, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Any questions?
Just for the clarification, if people are interested, sustainable practices was a portfolio that I set up and led last term, and now that we've got our carbon audit in place and we're working our way through that, there isn't a lot more for that portfolio to do. There will be some things that come along, but easily captured in council rather than having a driving function that it had last time. It doesn't mean that we're any less concerned about our sustainable practices, but it does mean that they are a bit more under control than they were this time 3 years ago. So, questions, folks? Tamer?
Just one comment on page 182. The policy coming into effect that as well.
Thank you. Okay. Shot that fish.
Yes, very
Well done.
Hope the fish coming your way.
Any other questions or comments, folks?
Yeah, just, I think page 200 is the Cyclone 1. Is the delegation, is the district licensing committee, and I just think that it lacks a constitution. Follows on after the hearings panel. I just think it probably needs looked at to see if it's got all the detail that it needs to have in it. It sits a bit like an insert. I don't think it's part of the hearings panel. Actually, I'm confident that it's not part of the hearings panel, but if you follow it through, it just sort of sits in there. It doesn't seem to have the whole reporting to the objectives and those things. And I know it's a bit of a different committee, but and maybe it just simply needs to acknowledge that the members are appointed in a different manner. But in this, it just sit there and doesn't say much else apart from what it does.
Are you okay to have it there for now?
Oh, it's been there forever already, so it's fine the way it is. It's just something that occurred to me. And the second thing is that, and I could be, so there might be a good reason why it's like that, so that'll be fine as well. Just not sure what it is. And the other thing Wayne has mentioned that sorting out the delegations to the chief executive, and I just wonder if in this document there needs to be a connection or a reference to the staff delegations that follow on from it, just to connect the two. Because some of them are relevant back to what comes from here, but they are recorded elsewhere. The delegations that then are given by you after this, just a reference, I think, because it's the sort of document that I think I looked at it and there is some reference back to elected members as well. So just make sure the cross-pollination does work both ways. Yeah, that's just, I may not need to, but I just think it should be some reference that, hey, by the way, we also do this.
And just the other thing to note, as was brought in the policy or decision of the last council, all our roles on, particularly the community boards, are now liaison roles. So we've tidied that up to make it very clear to the organisations that we liaise with how that works. Anything else, anybody? In that case, we're back on page 174 and I haven't had a go yet, so I'll move A and B. Someone will second that. Thank you, Tamer. No further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. And we're now taken to page 218, the appointment of councillors to community boards, and that's got your name next to it.
So this paper relates to the provision in the Local Electoral Act and Local Government Act to appoint councillors to community boards, one each in the Maniatoto and Teviot and 3 to both Cromwell and Vincent. The Maniatoto and Teviot are automatically appointed given there is only one ward councillor for each of those wards, so Sally and Stu. And for Cromwell and Vincent, there are more ward councillors and places available at the community board, and this paper provides recommendations in regards to those appointments. Those recommendations being councillors Brown, Gillespie and Laws to the CCB and councillors Alley, McPherson and Patterson to the BCB.
Thank you. And just in relation to those council appointments to the Cromwell Community and the Vincent Community Board, I had the difficult position this time around where I had 5 very keen people to be on 3 places on the Vincent Community Board and 4 very keen people for 3 places on the Cromwell Community Board. I applied the same rationale that I applied last time to the Cromwell Community Board, where I applied it last time to the Cromwell Community Board, where I simply went, the only objective determinant that I can have in making these recommendations is to look at the voting numbers for the council election and to say that the 3 highest people on those polls would have my recommendation. I note that Councillor Lynley Claridge did put her for the Vincent Community Board as well, and that I did take that into account, that she's very passionate about being on the VCB. But again, I didn't want to be in a position where I was using anything other than the one determinant I have, which is objective and in some regards is in the hands of the public. And that's why I've made the recommendations that I have. So is there any questions or discussions on that?
People that did vote for the board, I understand the objectiveness to make those decisions. Best I can.
Thank you, Naomi. I appreciate that. I know it's been a disappointment to you. You're very passionate about the board. On that basis, I'll move A, B, C, D and E if someone will second it. Thank you, Stu. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you. We're almost there, kids. We're now on page. Yeah, that was to the ones at the back of the room, not the ones at the table. Page 221, council and committee appointments, and that is me. So the names that I've attached to these aren't here, but we all know what my recommendations have been. So I'll just go through clause B. B1 is the Audit and Risk Committee. That has 4 members alongside the independent chair, and the recommendations I have for that are myself, councillors Gillespie, Alley and Patterson. The executive committee sits as per the interim delegations, and it has the mayor, the deputy mayor and a representative of a councillor from each ward that the deputy mayor isn't from. So that means Councillor Duncan and Councillor Fineman are automatically on that, and my recommendation is that Councillor Alley take the other place on the executive committee. The assessment committee, my recommendation is that that will be chaired by Councillor Alley, who chaired, was deputy chair of that alongside Councillor Calvert last term, and that Councillor, remind me? Brown, that's right. I couldn't remember which I'd done. Councillor Brown will be the deputy on that. Thank you. And the hearings panel will be Councillor Gillespie, Councillor McPherson, Councillor Cooney, and that Councillor Patterson will undertake training on that. And the Otago Regional Transport Committee will be handled by Councillor Duncan as the lead of roading. Central Otago Health Incorporated will be handled by Councillor Patterson due to her close connection with that. We've always had Clutha District act as our representative on the Otago Museum Trust. It's always worked well and I don't see any reason to change it. The Central Otago Wild and Conifer Control Group, Councillor Alley has put her hand up for that very important role. And Mini Toto Curling International, I've handled that for about the last 5 years, so I will be continuing to do that. Those are all liaison roles. Any questions or comments, councillors, or we just box on? All right.
Just to clarify, I assume that those names will go into the resolution as
Yeah.
opposed to how it's currently worded, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So I'll move A, B and C if someone will second that. Thanks, Neil. All those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Page 223 is our proposed meeting schedule. This really is a like it or lump it situation. So,
I've canvassed far and wide to come up with these dates.
brilliant, well done, thank you, Wayne. So I'll move A and B, and Tamer will second that. Thank you. For those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Our next meeting is 9th of November. Thank you.
So the Christmas one too, isn't it? The December one.
No, I'm pretty sure we got a December one.
Is it a December one?
Yeah. And that, folks, thank you very much, brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you particularly to Wayne for getting all that work put together and to the other staff who assisted. And we are done. Thank you. Thank you, the Brown clan. Your mother